Hello, everybody. Welcome, one and all, to another chilling, exciting, fun-filled episode of Radiorama, where I show you how to work on, of all things, radios, televisions, stereos, record players, anything that tends to run on vacuum glowing tubes from the 1920s through about the 1960s. Today, I'm not sure what it is about this radio because it doesn't look like much, but this is one of my favorite radios made of all time. Made by one of my favorite brands. You see, I restore a lot of Zeniths on this channel, and I have a theory as to why I restore so many, because they're usually the ones that get donated to the museum, is they just survived. They just worked and worked and worked and worked. And they worked when they were put away, and so a lot of them didn't get thrown away because there was nothing wrong with them. Anyway, this is a Zenith High Fidelity. I think it's a model X-338. I think it's from, I think they made these from 59 to 61 or something like that. I'm going to fully admit these are not exactly the correct knobs. When it came in, it was missing those knobs, and I couldn't find ones exactly like it, but I found some that looked pretty damn close. Usually these guys just work. However, I'm not going to be able to know whether or not I can pick up anything because the dial string is broke. That's not unusual. Happens on about 75% of these models for some reason. Zenith used the overall chassis design in this and others dating all the way back. Some of the earliest examples I've seen of this chassis date back to 1949, around there. And so they kept it in production for, 15 years or more. They're one of the few sets of the period that just generally work fantastic on FM. They used the Armstrong design. They partnered with he and his company. And as you know, Armstrong invented FM, Edwin Howard Armstrong. And anyway, here's something.
Requires post-pay Xfinity Internet. After 24 months, regular rates apply to all services and devices.
This is Robin Workman, the Workman Law Firm.
Still works, but I can't tune anything. I'm going to bet you anything that there's probably nothing that's ever been done to this. It probably is 100% original components. Who knows? I could be totally wrong. It's probably got a selenium rectifier, which is up here in the front in the notch cut into a chassis. And it has, I'm just trying to memorize it. I've worked on so many of these. It has an electrolytic capacitor inside that has 4 sections. That has an 80 microfarad and then 3 40 microfarad capacitors. And then there's an across the line cap that is a Bumblebee, that is a 047, and a bunch of 047 caps on the tuning condenser side over here under the chassis, and a bunch of ceramic caps. So let's see how good my memory was. Alright, so the back is removed and we can see the innards. Very clean inside. This is probably a later model. The earlier models had a piezoelectric tweeter in them, and they just had a pretty high failure rate, so they probably, knowing Zenith, they're like, well, we can't have any failures, so let's terminate that idea. This little nut up here, I can't tell if it's been disturbed or not. 99% of the people that get these, they never put that back in because it's kind of a pain. The speakers are connected by these cables here. The speakers are actually attached to the front of the cabinet. Earlier versions of this model had the speaker incorporated into the chassis. Let me see the bottom here. The bolts don't look that concerned, or that disturbed, rather. What is it? I'm also trying to remember, I believe, and I'm not sure why they did this, but it has a transformer. It's like a separate transformer for the lights, for the pilot lights. Because you see that transformer, got power coming in, it's only going exclusively to the pilot lights. So I'm assuming that's 120 down to 6.3 or whatever volts those things run on. There's 4 bolts that hold the bottom on, and they go through nylon threads. Because this is a true hot chassis, but Zenith did all the right things. You cannot physically touch anything metal on it. Even the shafts for the knobs and everything are set on non-insulating spacers. And the back is on really securely. It's hard to get off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the cabling, remove that nut there, and pull the nuts off the bottom, and then we'll take a look underneath and see what's going on. Alright, well, I'm not sure if it's 100% original. I had a difficult time getting the cables off. Usually they pop right off, and likewise, all the bolts holding it in were just stuck real good. Usually after you've taken your bolts out of these nylon threads a few times, they start loosening them up a little bit, and they were not loose. I'm looking here, and it appears to be all original, except I'm not sure about this guy. I think that, I mean, I don't know. I think this is a lot later model, and I'm also seeing just different brands of caps. I usually see Marblite brand caps in these Zeniths from this era. Those are Cornells. In fact, these are all Cornells. So this looks like a Sprague. I don't know. I really want this to be all original, but I don't think it is. I think someone replaced that at some point. But still, the rest of this is original. It's pretty remarkable considering you got something that was made 60-something years ago. And so little actually went wrong. In fact, it looks like all the tubes are of the same style and era, meaning the print, the coloration. I know that these two IFRF tubes always have white ink on them. And also, this aluminum foil plated cardboard usually gets all mished and lost the first time someone changes that tube. Both of my pilot lights were still working, and usually people lose these stupid cardboard shrouds on them, so I don't know. If I was a betting man, it's 50-50. It's never been worked on. Still the selenium rectifier up here. This actually has more plates to it than some of the others I've seen. Usually I see some that only have like maybe 4. This has 6. And here we have the aforementioned. This is the first time you work on one of these is a real bitch. I'm used to it now, but this is the electrolytic capacitor as far as the underside of it. Let's see if I find right about the values. Of course, it's turned around. Let's see here. Not sure if that shows up in camera. Yep, 80, 40, 40, 40. And the 80 microfarad is only, it's not much. It's only like 50 volts or something like that. No, it's 100. Is it? What is it? What does that say? 150. Okay, that's fine. I have a 100 microfarad electrolytic, so we can replace that with. Anyway, this is all I'm going to do tonight. My brother's coming over. He had a baby about 6 months ago, so about once a week he likes to come over and take a load off. So we're going to sit here in the garage and have a few beers and let him release some steam. All right, welcome to day 2, working on the Zenith. And no, this is not a Zenith. This is my truck. I'm probably the world's only person that takes care of a tiny little pickup, but I was looking at I remembered I bought it in high school at about this time of year, so I looked, and sure enough, this is the month that it was manufactured. It was made 20 miles down the street from here in Fremont. That now is the home place of the main Tesla factory. I bought this when I was 18, maybe not even 18, maybe 17, I don't know. But anyway, long story short, I'm a 45-year-old man now, and I bought this when I graduated high school to mow lawns. And it was the only thing I could afford. I think it was like $11,500 or $12,000 or something like that. Stripped bench seat. And for years I thought someday I'll buy something nicer. But I've had it so long I can't do it. It's basically been with me. In a few years it'll be with me 30 years. So happy birthday, truck. You just turned 27. Oh, and it's very useful to do things like haul junk like that. Alright, I will quit being a nerd about the stupid truck, and let's get back to the radio. I actually didn't get much done yesterday because my brother came over, as I mentioned. So what we need to do, or I need to do, is we need to replace all 4 of the values of that electrolytic can there, the thing that we looked up here yesterday. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to pick this up with a flashlight, but you see how kind of over there on that brown phenolic material, you see a hump? And if you were to look a little bit more carefully over, you'd see a triangle, a square. That denotes which value is which is stamped in the top on the can itself. There'll be a little symbols that indicate which value is which. And you replace these one at a time. All four of those. I need to clean some room out. This guy is too freaking big. I could put a much smaller version of that in to get myself some more room. You can also bend components out of the way. In my experience, the one that has the 80 microfarad cap is the one that has its own separate wire, just one wire, if I remember correctly. And what does that say? 80 microfarad. It's not very well embossed on this one. 80 microfarad equals the hump shape. So, let's confirm. Was my suspicion correct? Hump shape, there it is. Nope, there's two things going off of it, but that's okay. At least I know which one is 80, the rest of them are 40, so I'll just replace the 81 first, and the rest of them are just, you don't need to think about it. We already know they're 40. So I'll take this guy out, this big fat orange one, and reinstall the electrolytics, then we'll give it a test. It's usually wise not to shotgun recap something and then not test it in between your procedures. All right, I was getting carried away. I've done so many of these that I just sort of got into automatic mode, but what I've done here is I've worked on this enough to know that there's a lot of handy places you can put components. As you can see, there's not much room underneath here to, ordinarily I would attach the new electrolytics to the mounting lugs of the electrolytic capacitor. And that's important on most sets, because if it's a floating ground set, you need to use the same floating ground that guy's using. This one goes directly to the chassis ground. So that means if I have, for example, like this guy, which is a pretty long lead that was going from here to there, then that means I can relocate the ground of the electrolytic. I'll just hang it off right there. That'll be my positive. And likewise, I did the same thing with the others. This is going to its positive connection and then to a lug that goes to chassis ground. Likewise with this one. This one, because you have, this one has two wires that were coming to it well, actually I forgot to, that's a good thing. I just saw that. I need to solder that resistor to this other positive lug here. Let's go ahead and do that while I'm in here, and I hope that my arms don't get in the way of the camera. So bend this over like this, and route it to this connection here. Come on now, get on there. It's going to make a fool out of me in front of everybody on the camera. Alright. Manhandled it in there. And solder that one in. Goody! Now, I want to replace this last electrolytic. But before I do that, I want to get whatever that capacitor is out of there to clear up some more room. And plus, if I install it, I want to put the ground here, and then it'll make it harder for me to get to that cap. And what does it say here? Here's another little trick. If you have to detach a capacitor somewhere just because you want to be able to see the value, what I tend to do is I'll mark one side with a marker where it went, so I'll know when I attach the new one, that's where it goes. Sometimes you can also leave an extra long lead. Damn it, it just drops my nippers. Alright, go in here, cut that, and I need to push it out. It's buried under a bunch of stuff here. What value are you? 0.02, and then it's going to that guy. So let's get a 0.02 rated capacitor, and let's see, where does that go? That goes to pin. What pin? That's the last pin of this tube here. Damn it. I hate this capacitor, the way they put it in there. Out of there, you! Oh! Move! Alright, so we will attach one end of this lead to this guy right here and solder that in. Make sure and get your connections really good and hot. You want a good solid solder connection. A lot of people, when they start out, they don't get it hot enough and they'll develop what you can call cold solder joints. Will that just go over there like that? Yes, that'll work out just fine. I'll try to nab this thing out of here. Swear to God, it's like extracting bot fly larvas. And don't look that up on YouTube, it's gross. There we go. And we will route that over to this connection. Just knocked my flashlight over again. And voila. Speaking of flashlights, so I went through a period of about 5 years where I was just like, I would just drop my flashlights and break them. And even the mag lights, you know, the good ones. So this looks generic. It's called Bright Star Razor. It's made by a company in Pennsylvania that makes coal mining equipment. WorkSafe Intrinsic series. Yeah, they're a little spendy. It's like 30 bucks or something, but you could probably run this over with the car. I've had it for going on 3 years. Treat it like crap. Anyway, enough of that spiel. Now let's install this last electrolytic capacitor. As mentioned, that is chassis ground, and we're going to use that ground for this electrolytic. The negative being, of course, the striped side like that. And now we're going to solder it to... Ugh, crap. Get in there. There we go. Hook that on that negative. And you want to keep your leads as short as possible if you can help it. There we go. And now we will attach this positive here to the positive of this electrolytic. Some people have a little fancy pigtailer tool or a pig curler tool. I just realized my arms are completely covering this up. Lame. I might have to cut this out of the video. But there we go. That's too far up the connection there. I'm going to slide that down. Let that cool. Snip the excess. There we go. So now we have all the electrolytics replaced. It's time to test it out to see if it still works. I don't see why not. First, I'm going to make sure none of my new connections are touching anything weird. I think we're clear of everything. Alright, let's go ahead. Turn it on. I temporarily got it hooked up to a chintzy little speaker over here. Watch it not work. I swear to God. Every time I feel cocky, this is when things fail. Alright, it's very much alive. What remains is much of the same that you just saw. I need to replace the rest of the wax caps in here, or paper caps. We have 1, 2, And then 2 more over here. So there's more than that. There's another one here. So 5. Not many. The rest of these are a little easier to get to than all the quagmire over here. And if you see these guys, don't be fooled. It's just plastic wrapped around a paper film cap. And it's just as prone to exploding. In fact, they usually explode better because this is all sealed up. And so you don't have the porous paper. Instead you have this hard plastic case. And if they short, they just explode. I've seen a few of them explode. They sound like a cap gun going off. But let's go ahead and replace the rest of these, and then we'll get to replacing that selenium rectifier. All right, so we got all the capacitors replaced. Over here, over there, and everywhere. And now what we need to do is replace the selenium rectifier, which is this guy here. And what we're going to do is replace it with a modern diode. Believe it or not, that tiny little thing right there, that is the rectifier, the diode. And it's a semiconductor. And it's so efficient compared to this thing that you need to put a compensating resistor in there. So this is a 51 ohm, I believe, resistor. Anything from like 50 to 75 ohms is probably okay. And what we're doing is basically this. You have diode, resistor, and B+, well, positive of B+ will attach to this guy here, the resistor, and then the negative goes on the, and I can never fucking remember what's that called, but it's the other end of the diode. Is it cathode or anode? I can never remember. Whatever. You get the picture, so hopefully. So we'll take this out of here. This is the positive here. That will go to the resistor there. And whatever the negative is, which is these two guys, that will go to the that'll go here. That's the other side of the diode. And then it'll be time to do a test to make sure it still works. And then it'll be going on to the unfun task of restringing the dial string that has come off. Alright, so I've replaced the selenium rectifier with this guy, this setup. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. Usually if you put it in backwards, you'll know right away, because basically you're telling the electrons to flow the wrong direction. So I have my hand on the control here. That would have dramatically exploded or gone awry by now, so I think we're okay. Just waiting for the sound to come through. That buzzing noise, by the way, is my isolation transformer. I don't think I have this speaker connected properly. Let me check these connections. He had a bad connection.
Mavericks do without Doncic here to start the second quarter. Not good. Those are minutes you have to take advantage of.
All right. Whoops. Actually, what I want to do is leave it on for a little bit. I'm not sure if this resistor has enough wattage. That's all I had on hand. I'm going to leave it on for a little bit and make sure it does not baking away. I don't think it will. 1 watt should be sufficient at 50 ohms. And it'll be time to restring this this guy here. Okay, now it's time to address the broken tuning string. It's interesting. I think that for some reason Zenith used some sort of, whoops, I need to hold on to that. I need the length. It seemed like Zenith was using some sort of cotton-based rope or string for that part of the tuning condenser versus, for some reason, the string that uses the indicator is using nylon, so that doesn't really deteriorate. It's been a while since I've done it, but what I remember, I think you need to take this plate off so you can gain access to the tuning condenser pulley, which should have a spring, hopefully a spring that's still stuck to the inside. If not, I'll have to find another string. So let's take this off and investigate. Alright, I was right. Here is the plate removed, and now you have full access to the tuning condenser pulley here, and I can tell the spring that was in here, it's gone. Obviously, they decided to put felt underneath the springs, which is kind of crazy. I guess it cuts down on noise. But again, Zenith, they were thinking of things. Anyway, I've already lubricated the mechanism here, because when I attach a new string, I want to make sure that it's going to turn as easily as possible. I found a spring. I have a whole jar of springs, and we're going to attach it here. I'm trying to remember which way it should go. Let's see. I'm assuming maybe it came out this way, then wraps around this way, and then around that. I don't know. Sometimes it's like solving a puzzle. If I was smart, I would see if there's actually a tuning diagram for this, but I've done this so many times, I'll probably figure it out. Alright, so I was able to get this restrung, and I'm embarrassed to admit how long it actually took. It was a little more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Basically, you've got two strings sharing one drum. One string needs to be in front of the other, and kind of got this cantilevered action going on here. But it seems to be working quite well now. It's getting pretty late. I'm not sure. I'm pretty positive I don't have time to install the audio input I usually do tonight. But I am going to clean up the chassis and also the case, which is a little grubby, could use a little love, and then I'll probably call it a night. Okay, so here's a little update. I've been working on the cabinet and the chassis. The chassis is now cleaned up. Is that totally necessary? Not really, but I just do it anyway. It makes me feel better about it. I've used a product initially on the wood called Old English. This stuff you can buy at your local grocery store, hardware store, or whatever. If you're in the U.S. at least. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be elsewhere. But I've done an initial pass on the plastic. I did clean it up with some window cleaner and just a paper towel. I want to go over the plastic with Novus #2 plastic polish, and that'll just kind of do things like completely get rid of all the scratches that might be on this clear plastic over the tuning indicator, even though it looks like it's not really scratched up. Again, I think whoever had this took pretty good care of it. So who knows, maybe it wasn't used that much. It seems like it's been awfully pristine for even some of these guys that have gotten in. I haven't had one that has had so few things done to it. All right, welcome to the last day of working on the Zenith, and I'm going to do what I usually do with these guys, especially this model since it sounds so good, is I'm going to add an audio input feature which will allow the future user to run audio through a little 3.5 millimeter jack, and that will go into the right and left channels. Will feed into a pair of resistors. Doesn't really matter. The I think the value anywhere from 7,500 whatever ohms, and that will basically pair our right and left channels together for mono, and that goes into the secondary side of a isolation transformer. And when I say isolation transformer, all it is, it's the equivalent of a wall wart where 120 volts goes in, or if you're in a country that has 220, then 220 goes in. What comes out the other side is anywhere from 6 to 12 volts. I think we found that the ratio of 120 to 6 volts coming out the other end, is that right? Is it 6 or 12? 12 volts. 12 volts out. The primary goes to the volume control, and because this set has an automatic gain control feature, leaving this in circuit, even when we switch the radio signal on or off, it's going to interfere with that system, and it'll cause some oscillation. So we're going to add a resistor and a 0.03 cap. This is a 270k resistor. Voltage is very small, probably talking less than just a few volts on there. I mean, what this does is, since this is a hot chassis, this guarantees there's no possible way that any kind of meaningful voltage is going to get to the user at all. And so it's just another safety feature. And so I'll install that and I'll show you what that looks like The other thing we have to do is make sure and have a little switch that essentially switches the radio signal on or off. I believe on this model there's one lead only on the top of the volume control that essentially disconnects both bands. So I'll flip it over and we will do the installation. I think I can run the line through one of these holes, and that's nice because when you drill holes you get sharp edges and you need to file it down, but these are punched so they're pretty smooth. You don't want to accidentally create a situation where your audio cable can get cut, because then you would have an electrical hazard on your hand. Alright, so here is the system installed. I know it's not the neatest looking job ever in the entire world, but it works. Everything is going through the isolation transformer, and one side goes to chassis ground. If it's a floating chassis, which this is not, I'd advise you put it on the bottom side of the volume pot, but since ground is chassis ground, the shorter you can make your leads from the isolation transformer, the better. The other one goes to the top of the volume control. That ceramic disc cap was essentially the only connection that connected the radio signal. So we have a switch wire coming out of the back. It's too long for what we need, but that's okay. I'll clip it once I install it through the back here with the switch. And we've got audio coming in through a little Bluetooth device. Jesus. That's the United States Post Office truck there. Sounds like the beater car I drove in high school. Anyway, this seems to be working pretty well. Just need to put the bottom back on, and I'll probably cover this with a little glue just in case for some reason it ever comes loose. I don't want it to bump into anything, which it probably won't. I've never had one come loose. Put it back in the case and to give it a final test to make sure we're all firing on all cylinders and everything is hunky-dory. Alright, it's all done and put back together again, and as expected, these do sound rather good. The Bluetooth is going through it right now. Anyway, great sounding, great performing sets. I think this would have no problem being put back into daily use as not only a good AM/FM radio, but a good music playing device. Probably go well in someone's kitchen, maybe an office or something. But again, I really enjoy working on these models, again, because they're so well made and so reliable. So this will find a happy home. I think we're going to go to an antique show in June. So I've rebuilt the reserves. We have about 65 or 75 sets that are going to go, including this one. So if you happen to live in the Northern California area, look up the Alameda Antiques Fair. We will be there somewhere. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments section below. I'll try to get to those if I can. If you like this channel, press that like button. Tell your friends about it. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. All right, everybody. See you next time. Adios.